Good evening, and welcome to the King George County November 4th Board of Supervisors meeting and Service Authority. Can we please rise for the invocation by Mr. Sullins and stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Join me in prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with humble hearts on bended knee, and we just acknowledge that you are Creator and Sustainer. Lord, we just ask that you be with us as we're about the county business tonight, Lord. I pray that our conversations will be filled with grace and edifying to you. Lord, I pray that our decisions will be filled with wisdom, Lord, and blessings to our county. God, I pray, Lord, as we come up on our election tomorrow, Lord, I pray that people will get out and vote, exercise their right as citizens of this amazing nation. Lord, I pray that wisdom prevails and that whoever is elected for each of these positions that are being voted on, Lord, that you will guide them with wisdom and help them to govern in a way that is honoring to you and beneficial to our nation and our state and our county. Lord, I pray for our staff member, Lord, that is sick tonight. Lord, I won't say his name for privacy's sake, but Lord, you know every hair on his head, and I pray that you will just bless him, heal him, and help him to be back among us as soon as possible. Father, we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Flag, United States, Republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, there is.
Go ahead.
I move to amend the King George County Service Authority Board agenda to include SA 1107 award for the CSA for Peppermill 2 well under action due to the January 2025 DEQ deadline. And I move to include A 1108 King George County Service Authority summary of current and future projects and current financial situation under discussion items.
Is there consensus?
Second, or just
Okay.
consent?
If that's a motion, there's a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Votes aye. All righty. Public comment. Where's Reverend Davis? Not here tonight.
He was requested at the school board meeting.
Oh, okay. Ms. Level, you missed a couple meetings. Yes, you did.
Hi, my name is Ana Maria Lobor. I live in Presidential Lake. Today, I want to thank you for your service to the community. I also want to thank you for sending out our tax bill sometime this year and for you keeping your promise to not increase the tax rates. A special thanks for whoever had the idea of putting the bond issue to the people for their approval. We do not need more debt in King George County, but if the people want to spend $57 million more, then we should respect that and go ahead and spend the money. Sometimes it's necessary to ask the citizens if they agree or disagree. 35 years ago, I asked the school superintendent how it was possible for the children at Potomac Elementary School to learning when all classes were in one open space. The superintendent said, we will ask the parents. So he sent a note to the parents, and they agreed that it was not a good idea for the classes to all be in one open space. So the superintendent had the open area divided into separate classrooms with partitions. It's a good idea, and I'm proud of all of you for asking for the bond, because now we're going to see if the people of King George want to spend the money or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Level. Good to see you. Reverend Shaw?
James Shaw, James Monroe District, columnist for the Northern Next Sentinel, citizen journalist, kgmedia.top. Not speaking in my capacity as EDA member. New hat, euphemism maven. I want to thank Chairman T.C. Collins for permission to bring an unusual object to the podium for illustrative purposes only. There are certain subjects that when brought up in mixed company or within earshot of little ones that need a little tempering. So we use euphemistic language and synonyms to soften the blow. This presentation is rated G or perhaps PG due to the euphemisms. Part of my childhood took place in Chittenden County, Vermont, back in the days when that state had more cows than people. Later, as a pastor, I have served semi-rural churches that included serious bean and corn farmers in the Midwest. Dairy farmers have a saying, someone's got to shovel the stuff out of the barn so the cows are happy. As members of the Board of Supervisors and Service Authority Directors, there are times when that unpleasant shoveling function falls on you. It would be nice if life was rainbows and unicorns, but because of sin in the world, someone has to wield the shovel. Someone has to do the dirty work sometimes. Someone has to clean up a mess left behind, double entendre intended, by someone or something else, either on purpose or by accident. And we can even forgive and be long-suffering under those circumstances. Over the past 10 months, this board has done its share of shoveling. It may seem to you at times to be a thankless job. Be assured that some, if not many, of those you serve are happier for your work. Progress is being made. Messes are being cleaned up. Life in King George is getting a little more pleasant. Thank you, thank you, thank you. May God bless the King George Renaissance.
Thank you. Reverend Robinson?
I'd like to say good evening to the Board of Supervisors. I am Larry M. Robinson. I stay at 15513 Orange Drive here in King George County. I am a lifetime resident. I was born here and I graduated from the high school in 1970. I was gone from 1974 until 2010, and I've been back now for 12 years, and I'm glad to be back. I came tonight to express publicly our appreciation to the county, the Board of Supervisors, as well as the Tourism Department for your support of the Jazz Festival, the local Jazz Festival. We just completed our 5th year. I believe we have our hands on something that can be very good for the county. We don't have a whole lot that's going on here that draws people in, but also we don't have a whole lot that's going on. I think the Jazz Festival is something that really could be a drawing card not only for the folks outside of King George County, but also for the residents here in King George County. We appreciate all the support that you have you've helped us with. We ask for your continued support. And I'm asking tonight if you would consider we need to promote it a little bit more locally. I believe the key to the event becoming very stable is the local support of the local residents, but I also see that this Jazz Festival can be a drawing card for the entire area. I even envision a weekend that would be a jazz festival. And I believe we have our hands on something that really can be a blessing to the residents of King George County, but also a drawing card for those outside of the county. I pray for your continued support. And again, I'm very, very grateful for those of you who have actually come to the festival. I believe that, and this is the third time I'm going to say that, I believe we have our hands on something that can be a great drawing card for the county of King George. Thank you for your time. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Waters?
Good evening, good evening. I will echo many of what Pastor Robinson has just voiced. Number one, that we're grateful for the support that the county has given jazz in the country for the past 5 years. So we also want to thank you for attending, those who were able to attend, and we believe it is very, very meaningful for our audience to witness just how the county stands behind the event. 5 years ago, we stood before this board to report on our inaugural Jazz Fest right here in King George. And I remember being asked whether we intended to continue beyond the first year and being encouraged to do so. So today we are pleased to share that not only has the festival continued, but it has grown and thrived. Our event at Mount Bethel has brought numerous visitors to the county, both for the festival itself and year-round, as patronage at Mount Bethel has more than doubled since 2019. Festival goers and visitors often stop by local businesses, including gas stations, grocery stores, restaurants, and that boosts the local economy. With tourism and marketing funds, we can promote the festival to music lovers throughout Maryland, D.C., and Virginia through radio, social media, digital and print ads, and news articles. Our presence on platforms like Google, festivals.com, and community calendars in the tri-state area draws attention to King George. We direct visitors to the Visit King George website, where they can learn more about the county's historical and recreational attractions. Additionally, our performers' websites and their social media channels further amplify awareness. Musicians from across the country want to play at our festival, and once they experience Mount Bethel, they fall in love with its history and charm. Mount Bethel has become a vibrant gateway to King George County for our audience, for our volunteers and vendors alike. And this year, to mark our 5th anniversary, we participated in many, many community events across Virginia and Maryland, creating one-on-one connections with music lovers, an approach that has proven highly effective in spreading the word about the event. Every step we take aligns with the county's tourism objectives, promoting historical and recreational assets, enhancing the county's quality of life, and expanding entertainment options. We've built strong partnerships with local businesses that support us as sponsors and vendors year after year. Our audience, our volunteers, and many of our sponsors come from outside of King George, yet we give them all compelling reasons to visit and enjoy the county. Our 2024 summer report covers all of this in detail. So this year we are excited to announce a new expansion. Charles County Tourism, through one of their county commissioners, has invited us to bring the festival to their community next year. They are eager to incorporate jazz as a way to promote their local tourism. So thank you again for your support. We look forward to further opportunities to showcase King George and hope to continue this valuable partnership. We submit this respectfully to you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to give public comment? Seeing none, is there anyone online? Is there any written correspondence? Okay. I will close public comment. Reports of members of the board. Lee?
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody out here. Appreciate you coming out. I know it's been a few weeks. We had an extra Tuesday last month, so good to see everybody back out here. Over the last couple of weeks, I had an opportunity to speak with the GEV team, Mr. Mitchell specifically, and we had a good conversation. He expressed his continued interest on wanting to support the county. He wanted to just continue to discuss, work with the county to see how he can assist. Anything he and his team can do. He's excited to support the service authority and was willing to, offer up his expertise, his team's time, however the service authority seems fit. So I know there's still a lot of work we got to do, but happy to, have continued discussions with him and where there's opportunity for partnering and some involvement from users in the county. If they have recommendations or ideas that could be useful, I'm happy to, support some further discussions with them. So that was a good conversation. Aside from that, that's all I've got from the last 3 weeks. Appreciate it.
All righty. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for being here. First thing that I'll say before we forget is I know that the King George Middle School football team has a championship game tonight. So I think it starts at 7, so you might still have time to make it. I think they're playing for a undefeated season, so just good luck to those guys. Thank you, Pastor Robertson. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for being a part of our community and bringing the Jazz Festival. I know last year, I fought for you guys to get the money you needed, at least to what we could, and I appreciate it. I think that we're doing some reporting on some numbers too to see exactly, hotel stays, things of that nature. Just see how things are working out. But I appreciate what you guys are doing, for sure. Pastor Shaw, thank you always for the words. Ms. Anna, thank you again. Thank you. Anytime you get people to come out and encourage you, it's always good, and I appreciate those. Sometimes I get some of the highest intellectual people, people with degrees. Their vocabulary is very limited when they email me because it's just expletives or something like that. So, and I like to email them back and say, for a teacher or for whatever, you sure got some great vocabulary, you should expand that a little bit. But it's all right. It's part of the job. But I appreciate the chance to serve. I've gotten out this because we didn't have any board meetings and just got with people in Dahlgren and just to see how they feel about some things going on. And I'm getting some good feedback. I'm getting a lot of phone calls. So it's been good. I did meet with they're starting a Dahlgren Neighborhood Watch. And from Potomac Drive, from where the elementary school is, Potomac, all the way down to the marina, just down that way. Just some uneasy people who've been living here they've been living here for a while, and they've seen the changes that are taking place in the areas down there. And they're just, going to be proactive before they think things get out. And they've, the sheriff's department's been a great help in helping them get that off the ground and just really, just kind of encourage them to do it. I appreciate that. Once again, thank you for being here, and thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you. Mr. Stroud.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, everybody came out and spoke tonight. On October the 22nd, I attended a CT Eats event at King's Pizza, and it's always good to go to local establishments and spend time with folks. And that event was to recognize King George Schools that had won 2 awards, and also spoke about the King George Pathway Career Academy. And Mrs. Terry Rinko puts that on with the King George schools, work-based learning. So it's a really good program. Pretty excited to be involved with that. On 30 October, had a meeting with Mr. Andy Revelos at the NSA South Potomac Public Affairs Officer, and that was about the King George is hosting the Comrail event 10 November over at the Mary Washington campus in Dahlgren. So I'll be working with Ms. Southall on the brief for that. I also spoke to the sheriff about the Port Conway Road. Had constituents call concerning how hazardous it is, some of the people driving over there, and I spoke to the sheriff about it, and they watch that road quite a bit anyway, but there's always problems. You got a 2-lane road, you've got big trucks going down it, and you've got 2 really sharp curves. So just caution people, if you're on Port Conway Road, there are some people that do speed on that road. So especially be careful around the curves over there. So I don't know, until we get to the point where that road's widened or straightened the curves or something happens, it's always going to be hazardous. And that's pretty much all I've got, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sullins?
Thank you, sir. I want to echo my colleagues' welcome and thanks to all the folks that joined us here tonight. Thank y'all for making public comments as well. I really appreciate that. I appreciate it when folks get involved. But been kind of a busy few weeks here. Got to attend the George Washington Regional Council again with Ms. Bender last week. Also had a couple meetings with county administrators, so thanks to Mr. Smolnick for making himself available to meet not only with me, but some of our citizens. We had conversations on things like the goals and strategy for the Economic Development Authority. Also talked about some proposals for zoning updates. Got another meeting with him on Wednesday, not tomorrow, but Wednesday. I'm forgetting what day it is because we're early this week, to talk about water and the Service Authority. Got to field some emails about water and the Service Authority. Got to talk about some complaints on parking in one of our neighborhoods. Got to see some other emails that were kind of colorful. I will warn you, if you email me and you open it up with profanity, I'm probably going to delete it. I'm not going to bother reading it. So we can have discourse and be polite to one another. But that's not anybody here in the audience. So let's see. Also, I want to encourage you tomorrow. If you haven't voted already, get out, exercise your vote, let your voice be heard. You know, I really appreciate y'all coming and being involved in the county government, but tomorrow we have an opportunity to let our voices be heard in the state, local government, also some county decisions being made with the referendum. So please, if you haven't already done so, get out there and vote, make your voice be heard. And then finally, I'd like to nominate Mr. Carrot Scoville to be the at-large representative on the Wetlands Board.
Second.
Properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Thank you. Is that it?
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Bender?
Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody in the audience who came to speak. I also do want to recognize Mr. Ira West, who just passed away. He was a big supporter of the Dahlgren Base School. Him and his wife Gladys, who helped everybody. A lot of people have heard of Gladys, who helped discover and invent GPS. Went around this community and liked to go and talk to the students and encourage them into the science field. So I just want to for a moment honor Mr. West in his passing. I think he was almost 100 years old, so he was a good pillar of our community, and I just want to mention him right now. Next work, I wanted to alert everyone on VDOT upcoming. They're going to do some brine work. We have some dusty roads, especially in the Shiloh district, because they're chip and tar, and the rock. I think it's the term chip and tar. They're going to be going around and doing some work on them so it's not so dusty. I've had quite a few citizens contact me about how dusty it is. So just to know that there'll be some work in the coming weeks to brine work. I did attend GWRC, where we talked a lot about a workshop with the continuum of care and the homeless situation in the region. once again are reiterated that it's important we look at all models of helping solve the problem. Unfortunately, sometimes one federal HUD model is looked at all the time, and we need to honor other models like the Brisbane Center, and it's very important because they have a place just as important as all the other models that get a lot of federal funding. I know we fund the Brisbane Center a lot because they don't get any federal funding, and their method for the unsheltered homeless is just as important as the federal HUD model. One other thing is we will be talking soon, and I know Mr. Chip Davis from GWRC has reached out to Mr. Smolnick about the regional water supply plan that is required from the state, and we'll be having to start having discussions with Caroline. We are in a region with Caroline. I have a lot more concerning the Service Authority, but I'll wait for that to explain in my report in the Service Authority. Thank you.
All righty, and thank you everyone for your comments. Ms. Walters and Reverend Robinson, it was a wonderful festival. Thank you. Reverend Shaw, doesn't look like that shovel was used much. Just an observation. Ms. Level, thank you always for coming. We always appreciate seeing you and giving us hands on the community. I know that you're in a lot of different places in the community and you get to hear a lot of different things. Tomorrow is voting day. I hope to see a lot of y'all out, and I hope that King George has a record turnout for tomorrow. The consent agenda. We'll do 1101 to 110107. Ms. Bender.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda 1101 to 110107 as presented.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Stroud.
Aye.
Mr. Sullins.
Aye.
Ms. Bender.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right. Now we'll do 110102.
I'll make a motion to accept 110102 as presented.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Constitutional officers? No. Okay. And then now we're the board directors.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Collins. I will open this meeting of the Board of Directors. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda for the King George Service Authority Board of Directors?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion on the items? With that, I will call roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. All right, we do have a packed agenda, and there's a lot of items on here. We have a lot of reports and a lot of information, so everybody just hang tight, and here we go. First up, we're going to have a presentation on the utility billing of Service Authority Director of Finance and Procurement, Ms. Levita Kopp.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I can hear now. Levita Cobb on behalf of Finance to discuss the utility billing software as a service system. Hold on. There we go. So just a recap, during the FY25 budget cycle, the Board of Directors approved to bring utility billing back in-house to reduce costs, increase efficiency, and provide the customer with a better experience. Subsequently, the board approved a utility billing specialist position to support this effort. So, what are we looking to do and why am I here today? What we're looking to do is contract with Muni Billing to utilize their software for utility billing service. So currently, we do utilize their system. All the customer accounts are in there, but the difference is currently we have the gold standard package. So with this utility, just utilizing their software, the subscription cost is $25,752 per year. So as you can see, I just put I'm sorry, can you go back, Jackie? The slide up top, it just shows you exactly what the system looks like. And it shows you the reports for finance, what we need, like our accounts receivables and things of that nature. It helps us with our agent reports, and it provides a better product because what we have to keep in mind is that Bright is a finance system, but Muni Billing is a utility system. So that's the difference. You can go to the next slide. So looking at a cost analysis, currently we're paying Muni Billing $276,000 per year. That includes their utility system that we're using. It also includes customer service. It's the full standard package. So what we're looking to do is reduce that all the way down. And if you look at the cost savings with the service subscription, which is $25,752 per year, plus the utility billing specialist, his salary, we're saving $182,598 per year by utilizing this service. Next slide. The benefit of staying there with Muni Billing, and just by listening to some of the complaints from the customers and everything, we'll have better face-to-face customer service. Now they can come in, they can have a direct conversation with the billing specialist, go over their bills, get their bills printed, whatever they need. Shorter wait times on phone calls, ability to pay their bills in the treasurer's office by cash, check, or card, and they no longer have to mail payments to the North Carolina lockbox. That was an issue for some customers. Another reason why we would like to stay with Muni Billing to utilize their system, it reduces the likelihood of account errors, because if we import everything back into the Bright system, number one, as I mentioned, Bright is not a utility billing system. We have to import, and that is an import fee of $12,000 per import, and that's going to be at least 2 imports. And when you do that, there's room for error, and that right there for me is a concern. Another benefit is it actually has real-time, up-to-date financials. Currently, with the standard gold package, our Muni Billing will email our treasurer's office journal entries, and this is done monthly. That is a delay in financials for us. So with this new standard, finance and the treasurer will now have the ability to import the bills and the payments daily from Muni Billing to our general ledger, and it's utilizing an import icon that was created by Bright, and this is no cost to the authority. So responsibilities, the team met, and we just wanted to just iron out who would be responsible for what. And so I'm not going to go through this whole list, but you can see what Muni Bill is responsible for, what our service authority office manager is responsible for, and then the utility billing specialist, what he's responsible for. But one thing that I do want to focus on that has never happened before is we are now starting delinquent account collections. What has happened in the past is if someone moves out, that money just sits there. It's being owed and it's not being taken care of. And eventually that money gets written off. So what we have started is technically from the time a bill goes out, the customer has 45 days to pay before it is shut off. So now what we've done is implemented a procedure where our utility billing specialist will reach out to the customer between the delinquent bill going out and shut-offs to remind them they need to pay the bill. Is there anything we can do to help in this effort? Things of that nature, because our goal is to get the revenue in, but to also help the customer and to also reduce the number of shut-offs. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So I'm here today asking the board to authorize the Service Authority Board of Directors designee to execute an agreement with Muni Billing in the amount of $25,752, subject to approval as to form by the county attorney.
I'm getting that right now. Would anybody like to ask any questions? And since Mr. Collins, do you have a question on this?
We're not going to jump from discussion to action.
Here's the issue. To get this up and running like everybody wanted to by December, it has to be in action tonight because the staff has to be trained on this. I know this is very important. I know we've talked quite a bit with Levita and her staff, Mr. Rasavi also, that being able to keep this one service is actually going to help us be better for our customers, for our financials, keeping track of things, to give them better ease of use, to be able to pay the bills, to run reports, because the Bright system is not a financial system. Mr. Rasavi can give a little bit more information on that.
So, Ms. Bender, I don't see a downside because it's saving $182,000. It's having better customer service, taking care of delinquent before it gets shut off, and there's a lot of positives. But Robert's rules, you know, we knew this was happening, right? It's not like a surprise.
But Mr. Collins, we're trying to get the training for them right now. They can only get the training if we authorize them to be able to do. I know Robert's rules is a suggestion. In instances of importance, especially to help the customers of the service authority, I think this states it can be an action item. And waiting for it, they will not be able to get the training that they can quick enough for the December building. I mean, yes, we can. We can wait until November 19th, correct? That is the next meeting date, Ms. Fish? But the training will be delayed for the program.
Madam Chair.
Why would they need to have the training delayed?
Only because I don't feel comfortable with moving forward without a signed agreement by the approval from the county attorney and then a signed agreement by the designee, and knowing that the will of the board is to move forward.
So, Ms. Bender.
Correct.
So, in our past board experiences.
Correct.
We have fussed a lot about discussion and right to action.
Correct, but Mr. Collins, one of the biggest things of the Service Authority's 30-year history is we have no follow-through and we don't take care of things in a timely manner. This is, I think, taking care of things in a timely manner and helping our customers and our citizens and trying to make sure we follow through and correct the mistakes in the past of the Service Authority. But I do know, I'll come back to you, Mr. Collins. Mr. Davis did have a question.
Let's make a statement. I totally understand what Mr. Collins is saying, but we have made exceptions to that rule when things seem to be of urgent nature. And if this is something that we're going to vote yes on in a handful of weeks, then I would say we can just take care of it tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Lee, did you want to have any? I'm giving everybody their say on this one.
No, I'm good.
Mr. Solomon?
Straightforward.
Come back to you.
So I'm fine with going ahead and doing it tonight. I understand you not wanting to proceed at risk without having, our blessing and all that. I am curious, not try to be in a curmudgeon, but why didn't we talk about it at the last meeting?
We didn't because I didn't have all of the details in order to come and present the correct information, and I didn't want to put anything out there publicly that was not correct.
Perfect. And I've said this before, but I'm glad you're on our team.
Mr. Collins?
I've said everything I needed to say.
And and one more thing, it's not about the talking about it at the last meeting, but it's not been I don't even think been discussed in email form. Just anything of just this might be coming up. That's all. So it's when you hear about it, you see it on the agenda and you go over it. So, and I'm not holding you responsible for that.
Mr. Davis, when was it placed on the agenda, Ms. Kopp?
I sent it early, so I'm not really sure when it was placed on the agenda.
As always, any questions can be asked after you read the agenda, but...
What I'm saying is the first that we were made having knowledge of it was when it was placed on the agenda, is what I'm saying. I understand when it was. But if that's all, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the Service Authority Board of Directors designee to designate to execute an agreement with Muni Billing in the amount of $25,752, subject to approval as to the floor by the county attorney.
Second.
A motion properly second. Any further discussion? This is money, so it's roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Stallings?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
I have a split vote, yes for the money and no for the process.
Mr. Stewart, can we do it that way? That's the first time I ever had one of those votes.
Before the board, I think you've got to decide how you vote with that motion. I was not aware it was a split vote.
Do you want to abstain? You can abstain or
I'm not
vote
going to
no.
abstain. I want it to be recorded that I'm for this savings and this customer service, but I want to also formally be noted that I'm against the process.
I think we got that.
Got you. Thank you. Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Cobb, for all your work. And I know this was a challenging, because we thought Bright could do it, but unfortunately it came at a cost. And for those that were here of why we went to muni billing a long time ago, there was a lot of mistakes with the cross financial, and so this will actually help to remedy that, but still have a very massive cost savings for the customers and the service authority. All right, next up we have our FOG, not FOG King, but that's Mr. Wasabi. Rich, come on up and give you a presentation on our FOG update. FOG Prince, there we go. Can you turn your microphone on or bring it down? Can't hear. Jeff is, hold on a second. Just pause while we get the microphone working. Technical difficulties. Try again. Can you tap the microphone maybe? Is the green light on?
How about that?
That's all right. It's your first time giving your presentation, so go right ahead.
Good evening, Chairman and board members. I'm here to present to you the FOG report for August through October. At this time, we have visited all establishments in the county and have passed out the new ordinance and details. I've revisited all 51 establishments to set up all profiles and accounts through the FOG BMP. I've inspected all 51 establishments to have scheduled inspections in place to perform annual inspections. At this time, it was found that 2 establishments failed inspection. 1 establishment failed due to a rusted lid and rusted baffles. At this time, that establishment is replacing it with a new GB2 device, and that should be installed by November 3rd, which is this weekend. The second establishment, after elapsed time was given, failed to install a device and to comply. An inspection was generated and given a notice of violation with the directive to have the device installed within 30 days or fines and fees will be enforced. That will be expiring on the 15th of this month. I performed 51 observation inspections to ensure that ordinance is followed properly. While performing 51 inspections or 55 inspections, it was found that 3 establishments did not even have a FOG device on their premises. At this time, these establishments have been given 45 days to obtain the proper permits and install a device. I have required all establishments with devices of 100 GPMs or less to hand clean once a week. Maintain a cleaning log along with the required 3 months cleaning of a septic service company with the proper documentation. I'm actively working with 1 establishment that generates a high volume of FOG to alleviate the amount of FOG entering the pumping stations and treatment plant by requiring their 1,500-gallon interceptor to be serviced once every 2 months instead of the once every 3 months. I feel that this should combat the issue with them. So with that, any questions?
Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Collins?
So the one with when the 15 days expire, what happens to that one?
To 15 days, if it expires, we would have to access the board, or we would have to access a fine or fee. Nothing, no greater than, it could be from $50 to not to exceed $1,000
Is that a day?
Per infraction.
Okay. Does it have to come back in front of the authority?
That I'm not sure of. I can get you an answer to that.
Okay. Is there a particular reason why they can't come under compliance? They just choose not to?
Pretty much. I feel that if they've applied for the permit and it's waiting for permits division to accept and approve the permit, and I think that we should show some leniency. But if they haven't even applied for the permit, then fines and fees should be assessed.
So the ones for the 45 days have already applied for the permits and they're fine, right?
The ones for the 45 days, 2 of them have applied. One has told me he has. I have to verify with community development to make sure that he has.
And the fourth one is just decided not to do it?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, look forward to seeing you in 15 days.
Okay.
Lee, you have a question?
So it sounds like it might have been answered by Mr. Collins already, but the establishment number 2 that you referenced in there that has to comply by the 15th of this month, it sounds like they're not really in any communication with you right now.
I've visited his establishment multiple times over the past 3-4 weeks. He's given me. He had a daughter that was prematurely born and had a cyst on her liver, and his father had passed away all within the same week. That was a month ago. It's almost a month and a half ago. So I've been very lenient with him. At this time, I have sent him a letter, certified letter, stating that, him, not only him, but the property owner. I sent it to the business owner and the property owner, stating that they have until the 15th, as directed, to come in compliance. With that being said, if by the 15th he has his permit in and we're waiting on community development to approve the plan, I would request some leniency. But if not, then fines and fees should be assessed.
Understood. Now, I just wanted to make sure they were actually communicating with you or some fashion. And the establishment that's going to a 2-month cleaning for their 1,500-gallon interceptor, that's reasonable to them. They're in support of that 2 months.
Absolutely, they've agreed to it.
Okay.
And I've already directed them that if it doesn't combat the problem down to the numbers that would make it efficient for the pumping station and for the treatment plant, that it may ultimately have to go to once a month, based on the high volume of grease that they generate on a daily basis.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Collins?
So you went to all the schools, everything's good there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your work. Appreciate it.
No problem. I did find, though, at the high school, I've never came across this, that they have what's called an acid trap because of the chemist program. Basically, it's like a grease trap, but instead it has limestone in the bottom of it. I've required the school board director, facility man to he can send me the reports of how he services it, and basically I'm requiring him now to service it once a year because it's very minimum of what. It's running through limestone, so it's going to filter whatever little bit of chemicals they have. I have been maintaining that as well. So.
All right, thank you. Is there any more questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it and your work. You did a good job in the presentation. All right, next up, we have several action items. We're going to be talking about, these all have to do with the ARPA funds that do have a time commitment. I did want to give a little background. The staff has been working very hard on this and getting the easements. Unfortunately, some of the easements will require us to, we could not get the folks to donate the easements. So right now they're in discussion negotiations on the price for the easements. But we were able to put stuff out for bid before we acquired all the easements so that we make sure we meet the deadline. And I want to thank the finance staff and all of our staff, the Service Authority staff, for our diligent work to get this to bid. And you know, one of the things why I want to bring this up, and this is an action item, and we've been rushing to the finish line, is this stuff should have been done previously. And unfortunately, it wasn't. So in the last 10 months, we've been working to get everything to this point where we can make sure we keep those ARPA funds and use it to help the customers of the Service Authority. So our first one is the Courthouse to Canterbury Interconnect, Mr. Austin Wessel.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm presenting award of construction services agreement for Courthouse to Canterbury Water System Interconnection. Procurement issued an IFB to solicit responses from qualified sources for a contractor to provide all services, labor, and materials necessary for the Courthouse to Canterbury Water System Interconnection. 6 bids were received for this project. Franklin Mechanical Contractors was the lowest responsible bidder. References were contacted and correspondence recorded for that. This project is funded through the Virginia Department of Health ARPA Fund.
Do I have any questions? What was that? The amount is $427,741. And Austin, I'm correct, this one came in under what was originally estimated?
Yes, it did.
Mr. Collins?
I can read that, but I don't know if you could. So when you're on go-to meeting, a lot of times you can't see the split screen. So that's why I was just giving the number.
$427,741, which was underbid.
Thank you.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions? All right, do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the Service Authority Board of Directors designee to execute a construction services agreement with Franklin Mechanical Contractors in the amount of $427,741, subject to approval as informed by the county attorney.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next one is the Courthouse to Circle Interconnect. Ms. Kimberly Cook, Procurement Manager.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm here to present the award of construction services agreement for Courthouse to Circle Water System Interconnection. Procurement issued an invitation for bid to solicit responses from qualified sources for a contractor to provide all services, labor, and materials necessary for the Courthouse to Circle Water System Interconnection. 5 bids were received for this project. Jig Sanders Construction Company was the lowest bid for this project. This is a project is funded through the Virginia Department of Health ARPA Fund. Recommended action would be authorize the Service Authority Board of Directors designate to execute a construction service agreement with J. Sanders Construction Company in the amount of $958,677, subject to approval as deformed by the county attorney.
Do you have any questions? Mr. Sullins? No, sir. Any questions? Do I have a motion?
I move that we authorize the Service Authority Board of Directors designee to execute a construction services agreement with J. Sanders Construction Company in the amount of $958,677, subject to approval as informed by the county attorney.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you very much for all your hard work, and that was a lot in a very short amount of time. All right, as I sent about a week and a half ago to the Board of Directors, we finally did receive the consent order from DEQ on the Perkins Corner wastewater treatment plant in Oakland Park treatment plant. It's VA 0070106. and VA 0086789. It is included in the packet, the letter and the consent order. and the public can see that online. I got the original date extended conversation with DEQ to November 12th because I did inform them that we did have a board meeting today and it had to be approved to sign it. So this wraps up the consent orders we've received over the last year, especially concerning Perkins Corner. The staff has been working really hard to try to put an end to that, including an issue at Perkins Corner was excessive pure water, I guess you would call it, being rushed to Perkins Corner that messed with the bugs. And that was coming from one development, and Mr. Rasavi and the staff have been able to, we had to find the actual owner because the ownership had changed. And we have been in contact and working with them to eliminate the excessive water that was being sent. That was one of many issues. And so this consent order actually helps protect us, and Mr. Stewart can explain a little bit more of what a consent order actually encompasses, but it does help us get it back on track. It does put a timeline and reporting that has to be done, and we have to get Perkins Corner offline as of January 1st, 2027. One suggestion, I had sent it to Mr. Stewart, the staff, and in Bowdoin had suggested, and I agree, and I sent it to Mr. Stewart earlier today, and you have the memo here, and it's basically some things to add to the consent order to show what the Service Authority has done in the time span to get back in compliance. And I'll read a couple of them just real fast for the public. The compliance team in Bowdoin has procured a contract operations agreement with Bowdoin Environmental Services to take on the operations of the King George County Service Authority wastewater treatment facilities. This action secured necessary subject matter experts and licensed operator professionals to handle the operations of Perkins Corner Wastewater Treatment Plant in Oakland Park and their aged infrastructure. The Service Authority proactively developed and implemented a FOG program countywide to reduce organic loading of its wastewater utility systems. The Service Authority identified water service customers with high usage, as I explained, subsequently causing excessive flow at Perkins Corner and requiring repairs of the customers. And the repairs that we had at the pump station, the property owner has been billed for those repairs because it did cause some failures at the pump station. And Bowdoin, on behalf of the Service Authority, developed high flow plans for both the wastewater plants that includes pump and haul during high influent flow in order to prevent sewage overflows and unusual discharges, replace problematic flexible chemical feed lines with hard pipe PVC for more reliable chemical dosing and nutrient reduction, and more efficient backwash cycles at respective drinking water plants to reduce unnecessary hydraulic loading at the wastewater treatment plant and subsequently reduce groundwater withdrawal. So what I'm looking tonight is an approval to sign the consent order adding this in, and I will let Mr. Stewart just give a little more any information upon reading. I think it was a very generous consent order.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What that consent order does is it's essentially a contract with DEQ between King George County and DEQ, and it will effectively resolve all of the violations that we've had over a period of time. But we are agreeing to do certain things, and in exchange for that, DEQ is agreeing to end these sorts of fines and such. And there are no fines in this. This is completely in line with the meeting that we had where, I don't know, 6 or 7 of them came to King George and we sat and worked through everything with them. And it is absolutely in line with what we suggested that day. The only thing I would suggest, and I think I sent this in a note to you all, somebody really needs to be designated as the compliance person to make sure we do what we need to do, because I've seen that before where you enter consent order and then you do what you're doing, but you don't let them know. And so that is really important, just to make sure that we can resolve all these violations and move forward. I'm happy to answer any questions you all have if you have one about it.
Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Collins, start off.
Can we nominate Mr. Rasavi?
Sure, if you'd like.
Is that 2028?
Second.
That means he's going to be here for a while.
I know.
He's trapping you, Norm.
That's right.
He did not say no, and he'd be great at it. So we have a motion properly second, right, Mr. Davis? Motion properly second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Chair votes aye, motion carries. We'll add another title to you, the Compliance King.
Did he hear that? He didn't hear that.
No, he didn't. You're the Compliance King now. It's another crown. Before Mr. Collins made it, is any other questions concerning the consent order?
I have one.
Go ahead.
So actually, I know the answer to this, but you and I have talked about it in the past, but I just want to get it on public record. Just to clarify, there are no fines associated with this. As Mr. Stewart said, it's really more of a contract. It's time bounding, something that we've already said we're going to do. So there's no fines.
That is correct. It has reporting that has to be done in a timely fashion. I think 30 days is the first report showing how we're getting back in compliance, and it makes a hard drop deadline of January 1st, 2027, that Perkins Corner can no longer function as a wastewater treatment plant. And it sets it in, and DEQ has been for years trying to get that in. It sets it in stone and keeps us to it. So can I have another motion to accept the consent order and add in the positives that I summarized?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded.
Madam Chair, that would be found in paragraph 2, letters A through F. Is that the motion to add those in?
Mr. Solms?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Davis, are you okay with it?
Yes.
A motion properly saying this would be a roll call vote, correct, Mr. Stewart, or not?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
It's a
Lee?
contract.
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Solms?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Do we get discussion?
Yeah, sorry, I missed that one. Go ahead, Mr. Collins. I'll redo the vote.
So, getting Perkins Corner off by that date, have we completed all the engineering? How long till we issue a contract?
Mr. Young, can you come up, our county engineer, Bryce Young?
We just want to know when we can do that, and has all the land been secured?
Mr. Young?
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the board. The engineering is complete. We're currently out to bid, and that project will be the November 13th and November 15th for the 2 parts of that. The bids will be coming in.
And then Mr. Collins did ask about the easements.
We're currently working on the rest of the easements. There are some that we have not obtained yet, but we are working through them.
Bryce, am I correct? Part of them is compensation, so then there's negotiation about compensation.
Correct.
How long does that take?
It can vary from landowner to landowner, but some of them are the same day. Some of them take a week or 2.
So do we have a drop dead date that are going to be completed?
This project will be complete and payments paid out before the ARPA funds are due, or the end of the ARPA funds.
By the end of December is what you're saying?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yay.
Does any else, I'll go back over the motion since I did miss the discussion. Does anybody else have any other discussion questions? So motion properly seconded. We had discussion. Now I'll go back over the Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Collins.
Aye.
Mr. Solms.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. All right, we have there a couple of ads. 1107 award for the Peppermill 2 well. Mr. Rasavi.
Madam Chairman, it might be advisable for me to go over my sort of summary so the board and everybody can understand the big picture.
Yes.
That is inclusive in the summary.
I'll skip over to 1108, and then we give a summary, then we'll go back to the award, and Ms. Cook will get up and give her
Right.
part of the
Okay.
07.
Okay. If the board members look, I've tried to put together a simplified summary because not everybody looks at it like we do almost on a daily basis. And so I've listed on your sheet the VDH funded projects, which total $5 million, and the DEQ funded projects, which are the $16 million.
these are not interchangeable. If we're short in the VDH, you cannot, and have a surplus in the DEQ ARPA funds, you cannot transfer them to that, because that question has been asked a couple times by some people. One of the things after the question came up about the Peppermill #2 well replacement, it was initially to be included in the ARPA projects for the Service Authority. There was a presentation made by TRC in December 19th of 23 to the King George Board of Supervisors. The Potomac Landing well replacement was included in those funds, but for some unknown reason, Peppermill #2 well was excluded from the submission. I've searched the record. I can't find out what the rationale or reason. I've asked Bryce, and no one seems to understand how that was admitted. I don't know if they were told that it's an X amount of dollars and you have to stay under it, or what. So I can't answer that question, but we did find the presentation that was made to the board back at that time. Okay, we've prepared a summary of all these projects, and the Peppermill well replacement is a requirement of the existing DEQ groundwater withdrawal permit. We've received an extension via the minor modification to the existing permit, which requires them to be complete the project by January 28th, 25. So we are cutting it very close, and the permit also requires the abandonment of the existing well by March 1st, 2025, of the current Peppermill #2 well. If you review these projects, you'll see all of them have been out to bid other than the one that is in red. That bid has not been received as of yet. I'm not sure what the date, is it the 15th or the Hop Yard to Courthouse interconnection? The 13th? Okay. So basically, for example, the Arnold's Corner well exceeded the estimated budget by $116,000. The Circle and Courthouse interconnection bid exceeded by $310,677, and we've postponed the abandoned Circle wells, from my understanding from Bryce. The Canterbury, the courthouse bid estimated budget was $891,000. The bid price came in much lower, which you approved earlier this evening. So you had a savings there of $463,259. Also, the new Fairview Beach well was estimated at $500,000 and came in at $187,000. That, in my understanding, I think the county engineer has provided the board members. There was some question why the differential in the bid. That was a much smaller diameter well and not as deep as the Peppermill #2 well. So the Hop Yard to Courthouse, again, we're still awaiting the bids on that. But right now you see just a rough estimate of a negative balance from the $5 million of $920,869. The next area is basically some of the projects that you discussed that are funded by DEQ, and we only have one of those that's outstanding, and I'm not sure when that bid is to be received, Bryce, or do we have a date on the Perkins Corner? 15th? Okay, 13th and 15th. Then everything should be in hand, correct? Okay, thank you. So we're waiting on some of these agreements. Right now, there is a surplus of funds, the 1.1 million that you see in the difference column. And so we will be awaiting those bids, and hopefully they will come pretty close to the, I guess the engineer, was these the consulting engineer's estimates, Bryce? And they were done back in 2021, is that when you told me?
Bryce, can you
Okay.
come back up? Because this is actually very important.
Those quotes were done in 2023.
Okay. So we should have the answer to those shortly once the bids are received. And those will be before the next board meeting, correct? Yeah. So,
Should be.
Yes.
so we'll be able to report back. Okay. What, the next item, sort of going back to the previous one on the Pepper Mill, well, there was 2 bids that was received. One from Schultz of Maryland and one of Toano Well and Pump Service for $785,000. I've discussed this with the county administrator, the finance director, and I would recommend, with the time frame that we are under, that we approve the Pepper Mill number 2 well replacement project for the low bid, which should be accepted. And then we're still uncertain of this, but I would recommend utilizing $605,224.74 of the unused ARPA funds that were directly provided to the county in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The eligible uses of these funds were specified in the directive from the Treasury Department that specifically identified water, sewer, broadband, and I believe you used some of that for the broadband all points program. So I think that's very safe. You don't have to worry about it not being a proper expenditure when it's audited. And I think considering the temporary nature of these ARPA funds, it's a one-time deal, unless I guess we have another pandemic, which we all hope that that's not going to happen. So I think it's important to utilize these for non-reoccurring expenditures and to target strategic, important, long-term assets that will provide many years of benefits. So I would recommend utilizing these ARPA funds, which would leave a balance of still $140,975.26 to be funded from another source. And I would recommend that a supplemental appropriation from the King George Service Authority Water and Sewer Fund be done to support this contract.
So we'll stop there and let any questions concerning this. And the ARPA funds, Ms. Cobb, you can reiterate, this is what the county has left. And some of it is what's left from projects we've done for the last 4 years. There were remaining funds, but that's what's left. So does anybody have any questions? Any questions? Mr. Collins? So do I have we need a motion on this one, correct? For the Pepper Mill, so I have a motion on the Pepper Mill. And then we would also have to, this is a little confusing, to allocate the funds. The Water and Sewer Fund is the only one from the Service Authority, and the other one has to come from the Board of Supervisors, correct?
That's
so all we
correct.
can make is a vote and a motion on the 140, yes. Correct?
Yes.
So do I have a motion? Probably needs to be 2 motions, correct? Right. Who would like to give the motion? Mr. Sullins? Paper got passed to you.
Madam Chair, I move that we authorize the Service Authority Board of Directors designee to execute a construction services agreement with A.C. Schultz of Maryland Incorporated in the amount of $746,200, subject to approval as to form by the county attorney.
Do I have a second?
Second.
With the motion properly second, any further discussion? Mr. Collins? Before I go.
Are we supposed to do the ARPA funds split with that, or how we?
It's a separate vote. We'll do this vote first. Lee? Motion
Aye.
published. Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Second motion.
It's a Board of Supervisor motion.
No, wait a minute, this is for the money from the Service Authority, then the Water and Sewer Fund. Can we put that back up there soon? Did I do that wrong?
Yes.
Right, but the Board of Supervisors has to do the ARPA.
Correct, we have to do the water and sewer fund next,
Right,
correct.
yes.
And then the other motion comes during the board of supervisor time.
That's correct.
Right. So do we have a motion for the allocation from the water sewer fund? Mr. Wasabi, can you give us a suggestion for that
Got
one?
it. I'll take a shot at it. I make a motion that we, with funds, move the funds from the supplemental appropriation from the water sewer fund for $148,975.26.
That work? Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion properly second. Any further discussion? With that, roll call.
Should I have signed that to the Peppermill project? Because I don't think I mentioned that.
You want to amend your,
Yeah,
motion again?
All right, I'll try.
Or amend.
Yeah, I amend to add the source to be used for the Peppermill well.
For 2. Right. We have a motion. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Lee? This is for the Service Authority.
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Solons?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. All right, continue on, Mr. Wasabi.
Okay, another issue that I've been sort of delving into since I'm dealing with a few problems of the Service Authority. We found that when I spoke with Levita, a line of credit was taken out back in 2019 in the amount of $15 million. My assumption is, with not being able to speak to anybody, that this was probably in advance of knowing that you were going to receive these grant funds and so forth. But anyways, they did draw down funds on this credit line, which was about, I think, approximately 1.3 million. Is that right, Levita? Pretty close to that. For the Fort Line Waterworks, I guess the electronic meters is what they were. Is that right, John? And then I think there was a ditch witch that was purchased. Those are the 2 items that were purchased from these funds. Is that correct? And what's happened, there was no plan or repayment schedule. The only thing we were getting was the bill for the interest. So the interest paid from fiscal year 20 to 25 was $41,191.44. So when I asked the chairperson and Levita to go down to the bank and make some inquiries, we learned that the signature cards were from 3 county administrators ago, and I'm not familiar with the name of or who the person was.
Dr. Young in the chair in 2019, which was Mr. Mike Bennett.
Okay. And so those signatures were on there, and we had some difficulty eventually trying to get those changed over, which was concerning. Not that saying somebody would do something, but they legally had the authority to sign checks off of that account. So that has been adjusted, and I was waiting here to give you some advice on the course of action. I have got an email that was sent to Levita on the auditors because I wanted to confirm that we were in agreement on what the fund balance as of June 30th was for the Service Authority, which was $9.36 million. So confirming that from the auditors, my recommendation would be the Service Authority authorize from those funds to pay off this note. And I don't know that there's any reason to keep it open because isn't in 7 months or so the rate is going to increase, and it's going to go from 2% to, was it 4 or 5%? Yeah. And so, but I don't know that there's any need for that. And some other things I'm going to talk about here. I will work with the county administrator and the finance department on financing alternatives, which I think would be much more attractive. Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir. Is there also sometimes I'm in banking, so that just for a line of credit, there are annual and monthly fees just to keep that open. Is that something that we're having to do as well?
Yes.
Thanks.
Mr. Davis, I know you had called me about this concern, and we were waiting on getting the authority to switch over the signature cards because at first the bank was not as cooperative in changing them. It might be a nice way of saying it. We had to give a lot of documentation and a letter from Mr. Smolnik and the treasurer to show that those people were no longer with the county. So it took a little while to get the signatures changed over so that we could get the proper information. So with that, we could bring this up at the next meeting to pay it off?
Well, the balance will increase. I think it's by $80-some a day. This figure, was this for October 31st? Is that what the figure was? And then so it's like 80, something a day that's added to it. So the sooner we pay it off, the better.
We just have to have the exact amount to make a motion. What is the discussion? What would everybody like to do with this? Paid off now?
I'd like to pay it off and close the account.
Is that a consensus from everyone? Because I will tell you, looking at it, on June of 2025, it does go up substantially, the interest rate. I remember at the time, this was taken out in 2019 by Mr. Weekly in anticipation of decommissioning Perkins Corner and that, and this was before COVID when there was anticipation that there was probably going to be difficulty getting funds. Do not know why this was utilized by previous administration, but it was. So what is a motion we need to craft for this?
You're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Okay. Well, did you pull up that email to what the amount is?
You have all the numbers, so that'd be good to help us with.
We just need to add the 1,301,814.35 was as of the 31st, and we just need to add whatever the amount per day that the lady told us, which I don't recall right off the top of my head. It's $80-some a day.
And what I want to bring up, we've seen some of the preliminary audit information in the service. For those out there that are listening, the service authority debt has gone up because of this line of credit, but it will drop down again after the line of credit is paid off because it was exactly this line of credit. Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
Will that affect the ratepayers in a positive way?
Yes, because we are paying it off, in my opinion, right, Mr. Musavi?
You'd be paying no more interest payments.
So your water and sewer debt fee will be lower?
I can't tell you that right yet at the moment because I'm waiting to get the final audit. Then I'm going to rerun my numbers, and then we will have that discussion.
Okay.
As we're waiting, I know Mr. Collins has asked that question. Mr. Rasavi is making sure we get that official audit with the official numbers before he can do any of his amazing calculations to look at that.
We're trying to correct a lot of deficiencies that have existed there over the past 20 years, and it's taking a little bit of time to redirect. It's like turning an aircraft carrier. It's not easy to do. And so, but I think we're getting there, and so hopefully we can get this on the right track.
Mr. Collins?
I think in 10 months, doing what should have been done in 20 years, Mr. Rasavi, you did a good job.
Well,
thank you.
I don't know about that. Do you have the number, Levita? Well, while she's doing that, let me just finish the report. Okay, then we've touched on briefly about waiting the bid results for the remaining project, the hop yard to courthouse listed above. And I explained that, you have one bid that was over, one was under. And so we will probably need to supplement the VDH funds. And right now, that number stands at $107,582. And so we will have a much clearer picture once they receive the remaining bid under the VDH portion. And then we can sit down and I will report back at the next meeting on the proper course of action. I guess one thing that was puzzling, I went back and looked in the audits of the year that when they utilize this fund when there was plenty of money in the water and sewer fund. It kind of puzzled me why you would borrow funds rather than paying for those, because I don't think those meters were put in all at one time. Was that correct? They were put in, looked like, yeah, over 3 years, and it would have been very easy to pay cash for those over those time period, but that's water over the dam, so, but it's just kind of puzzling. Also, we are waiting, and I don't know, Bryce may be able to help us out on this, on the preliminary engineering report for the probable opinion of cost for decommissioning the Oakland Park wastewater treatment plant and redirecting the flow via force main to the Hop Yard wastewater treatment plant. And also the interconnection of the water system to Hop Yard from that area is also another project that's on the horizon. And then the construction of an eventual water treatment facility will be another utility project, which is probably going to be the most expensive of those. And no known grant funding exists for these projects at the present time. But we'll certainly look at all alternatives.
And Mr. Asabi, I want to point out, I know both of us have looked and been on a couple of calls about possible grant funding, but part of King George's problem is our median income. Correct, Mr. Asabi?
Yes, that's not helpful in seeking grant funding to the high level. And of course, the federal jobs that you have here drive the median income up to where it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Mr. Collins, did you have a question? Thought you had a question. In the Oakland Park, I was even puzzled why that was. I remember it being talked about that it was included in the ARPA funds, but we found out it was not. And I know Mr. Stroud has talked about this, especially with the purple pipe. So this is why we have it out, working on the engineering to actually put it out for bid.
Bryce, do you have a timeline for when that PER can be anticipated we'd be receiving it?
I believe it should be within the next 2 weeks.
Ms. Cobb, do you have that number yet?
Okay, so the interest is $86.58 per day. The 1.3 million that Norm referred to, that's as of 10/31. So if I'm just looking out based on just the timing, if we make the payment by Friday the 7th, that'll be $1,302,420.41.
Would anybody like to give the motion?
Could you repeat that bottom line number, please?
Yes, sir. $1,302,420.41.
And which fund would it have to come out so we can put that in the motion?
That's going to come out of the King George County Service Authority fund balance.
Go ahead.
I'll give it a whirl. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we use $1,302,420.41 from the King George Service Authority fund balance to pay off the note in question.
We have to, Mr. Stewart, we also have to add the signature part, and do we have to add the entity we're paying it to?
Sorry, you have to add what?
The entity we're paying it to, like who we're paying it off to.
The bank.
You're paying the note at the bank.
Right. I didn't know if we had to put the name of the bank into it. Was that motion okay the way Mr. Solons? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Solons?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your work on this one.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Davis.
do we make reference to closing that line of credit?
We did not have that in the motion. We could add a motion. Does anybody, Mr. Davis? It's Atlantic Union.
I'd like to make a motion to close the, what kind of account was it?
It's a $15 million line of credit.
$15 million line of credit with Atlantic Union.
Second.
We have a motion properly second. Any further discussion?
Could-
Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
I couldn't hear the motion.
So the motion is you made a motion to close out the $15 million line of credit with Atlantic Union Bank.
Thank you.
So I have a motion properly second. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins, just in time?
I did stick around and hear the motion. Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Was that report done, Norm?
Yes.
I didn't get to the end of that. All right, so I have a couple of items on my report for the chair. So I wanted to list some other accomplishments that Mr. Rasavi and Bowden have not highlighted. I think it's amazing the amount of work that's been done in 10 months that wasn't, as is previously stated, done in 30 years of the Service Authority, which was founded in 1992. So we've garnered new equipment that actually helps so you don't have to have on-call services and helps our employees that are maintenance staff actually do the work they need to do, like a new pump truck, a jetter truck, an excavator. They cleaned up the yard. The finance and procurement staff actually has sold quite a bit of the equipment. There is still some that are out there, but they've netted, as of today, $35,000 selling off stuff that was just sitting in the yard. There's a couple of vehicles that don't have any takers yet, so they got to reduce the price a little bit to see if they got takers. And we're still trying to, Austin is working to try to clean up the property in Presidential Lakes. He's hit a little bit of a roadblock, and he's been working. Thank you to VDH that shared some information they had about what is at the site. So Austin, I gave it to him today. He's going to be working to try to, so we get some of those tanks and stuff off that property and make some money off of what's left at that well site in Presidential Lakes. And I know Mr. Stroud has had some of his constituents reach out to him about that. We have the fog inspector in the program that is going well. A finance specialist too, to help. We got that position to help with bill paying and purchasing to make sure we do it in a timely manner. We finished the AMI metering project, better relationship with DEQ. I think and Norman, I think every high-level person at DEQ now. Working on streamlining the bill process. Customers now will deal with the local treasurer and our finance staff instead of having with an entity in North Carolina. We have our utility billing specialist that is eager to learn and is excited to, he's been in his job, but he's excited to actually be able to answer the customers and help out with billing. Working at better record keeping. Thank you, Patty, for producing some of those old records with the ones I have and the stuff that they found in the office. Thank you, appreciate it. All individual projects where they stand and dates are being updated right now. The VDH and the ARPA funds. There's a lot of projects in the CIP and the list. We're going to be improving that list. Working on getting a buyer for the stuff at Presidential Lakes. And one other thing I want to mention in the board report, that's just some of the highlights, and I'll be working on writing it all down. I just hand wrote it today, is we did receive an unsolicited bid from Aqua to purchase the Service Authority. I did send the information to the board of directors, and I wanted to get consensus on what you wanted to do with that offer. It was unsolicited, and there are rules under the PP Public Education. Help me out there, Mr. Stewart. I don't remember all the acronyms. The PPEA, correct? That's the act they submitted it under?
Well, I'm not sure about that. What?
It's public, yeah, PPEA, hold on.
Procurement Act?
Public-Private Education Facilities and Infrastructure Act.
I'd still think it's a public document, but.
Correct. No, I was just saying that's what the unsolicited bid was sent.
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood the question.
That's all right. It's all good. A lot of information going on. So what is everybody's feelings? I know you've had time to digest the document.
Is it a public document?
So here's the question. So there are three pieces to the offer. There was a fancy brochure showing how awesome Aqua is and its parent company Essential, and there was two other documents. One of them is labeled confidential, but that document we did not agree to it being confidential. And I have asked Mr. Stewart, and if you could elaborate on that, because in the document, I've read the document several times, they mentioned that they wanted to stay confidential, the second folder. So, Mr. Stewart, can you weigh in on that?
So, Madam Chair, under the Freedom of Information Act, there are certain things that can be withheld that primarily relate to trade secrets, proprietary information regarding how a business runs its affairs, things that make them competitive that they don't want their competitors to know about or to be public information. Typically, they would have you sign an agreement to that effect before they provided it. It is really up to this board, as far as I'm concerned, as to how you want to handle that. But you may just want to hold that for a little bit, chew on it before you move on it. I don't know.
And the one I'm speaking of is I'm just going to read the title, PPEA Proposal to Acquire the Water and Wastewater Utility Systems of King George County Service Authority, Confidential, Volume 2. And this was hand dropped off to Finance on October 17th, 2024.
They would obviously like you to not disclose any of their trade secrets. I'm happy to look at that if you would like. I've not seen the document, but I think they're asking you not to disclose their trade secrets. I think it's up to the board how they want to treat it.
You can disclose the terms, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the terms that I read in there, Ms. Bender, is $50 million.
Correct.
And $50 million is what we think that our assets are worth at this point. What we have, so that's just giving you $50 million for the assets. There's $25 million in debt, and there's only a 2-year on rates that they won't raise them. So I think all three of those reasons would be a no for me. I mean, that's kind of $50 million is kind of a joke.
And they would also like the property that the Service Authority resides on, which is owned by the county, in my correction, as part of the deal.
And what's that value?
I can't tell you.
Madam Chairman, first of all, the assets last reported in last year's audit was $47 million. So all the $21 million of improvements that are going to be made are going to dramatically increase that. So that offer is way insufficient. And plus, losing control over the most vital aspects of your economic development efforts, in my view, would be problematic.
Correct. And the public knows that the last time they did put in an unsolicited bid back in 2018, when they were here briefly as the interim general managers after Mr. Thomas left, is I was offended because they basically offered us the debt. That was it. We'll just pay off the debt. So, but it's up to the board. I mean,
so we can reject the offer.
Yes, we can, and we just hand them back their
So I'd like to make a motion.
Information.
I'll just make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to respectfully thank Aqua for their unsolicited bid and reject the offer that they've provided.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Mr. Davis has a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, Ms. Bender.
Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
So can they put in another unsolicited bid within a certain period of time?
Mr. Stewart?
Mr. Collins, anybody can offer to buy anything anytime they want.
Okay.
Any other questions? Right. I have a motion properly second. I will take a roll call vote on this, Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. All right, we will move now to the secondary public comment to address meeting matters only. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so that it can be properly recorded and included in the public record. All right, with that being said, is there anybody online, Jeff? Did anybody receive any correspondence while we're sitting here? All right, before I ask for a motion for adjournment, I did want to mention that I did speak with Ms. Southall, and she's working on a newsletter to include in the first bill that we send out to the Service Authority customers taking back the utility. She's helping me come up with a fancy thing to put in the bill. All right, can I have a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion that the Board of Directors adjourn to Tuesday, November 19, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. in the board room of the Parks and Recreational Center at 8076 Kings Highway, King George, Virginia 22485.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion carries. Mr. Collins?
All righty, so thank you, Ms. Bender. So from the Water Authority, there's still an open motion for ARPA money. Mr. Rasavi?
The one from the county, right?
One for the county.
Yes. You asked me the dollar amount? Is that?
The dollar amount, yes, and we need a motion.
And Mr. Chairman, so working with Ms. Cobb, I guess the motion would be to transfer $605,224.74 from the ARPA project line to the Service Authority's operating budget to cover the Peppermill well.
So moved.
Second.
Properly second. Roll call. Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, now we'll go on to Mr. Smolnik, appointments, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So shortly after my arrival here, I've been serving as the Director of Community Development, Subdivision Agent, and the Zoning Administrator. So I'm very happily presenting a resolution to the board to appoint Kelly LeDuc as the Director of the Department of Community Development and as the Subdivision Agent for King George County. And local code gives Kelly the authority to designate an individual to serve as the Zoning Administrator, to which she will appoint Mr. Kenny Vaughn. So the resolution before you is just for Ms. Kelly LeDuc for the Director of the Department of Community Development and the Subdivision Agent.
Go ahead.
I will make the motion to appoint Ms. Kelly DeLuke as the King George County Department of Community Development Director and the Subdivision Agent.
I'll make a friendly amendment.
Go ahead.
Her name is Kelly LeDuc, not DeLuke.
Thank you.
Thank you, and to approve the resolution as presented.
Yeah.
You could just say approve this.
Approve as presented.
Second.
All right, properly second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, next one, 1103, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You all are aware that some time ago, well, actually, this board last year, I believe, entered into a contract with Tyler Services regarding technology software for the county. At some point this year, the board determined that they and Mrs. Cobb would like to go in a different direction on that. And so you all charged me with negotiating an end to that agreement. What you have before you is a termination agreement, mutual release. The only probably significant thing I would tell you is there's a non-disparagement clause in there, which is something I like to put in agreements so that when people end their relationships, they don't say bad things about each other. And this was not a bad situation. I'm not suggesting that. I just think that's always important. But the contract before you, they are agreeable to terminating it for $150,000. I think Ms. Cobb can correct me if I'm wrong. We owed them $112,000. So an additional $38,000, cancel that contract, and I think it was about a $4 million contract. Somebody else can correct me if that's right. $2 million. Okay.
What was the savings?
The savings, $1,869,625.
Okay.
And so if there are no questions, I would ask that you approve, I believe I gave you a resolution too, authorizing us to enter into this agreement. Hopefully it's in your book.
Mr. Chair, I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors hereby approve and consent to the attached termination agreement and mutual release and authorize the interim county attorney to enter the same.
Second.
Properly second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, by roll call, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Stroud.
Aye.
Mr. Sullins.
Aye.
Ms. Bender.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, thank you, sir.
And Mr. Chairman, then I think this is out of my realm. I'll let Ms. Cobb or Mr. Smolnick help here. But I think you've got to authorize an allocation of that money from somewhere so we can have a check issued and get this whole thing finalized and put to bed. And that's a separate motion. That's why I bring it up separately. But I don't know where it's coming from.
So I believe this was a previous CIP line item, so there was money allocated already in the Tyler CIP line item, so
No, that money was unallocated at some point in time this summer, but I can't tell you when it was. There was money allocated at one point in time. That money was unallocated, was my understanding. So it needs to come from whatever category you want it to come from.
So the money was de-obligated when I came before you all and we decided that this was the best route. However, that money is still sitting in the CIP and has not been transferred back to the project line, only because we're still within, we haven't transferred over to the new year. So the best answer right now is to allocate that money from the CIP.
Mr. Chair, I move that we allocate from the CIP $150,000 to terminate the Tyler Technologies agreement with King George County.
Second.
Properly second, is there any discussion? By roll call, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Stroud.
Aye.
Mr. Sullins.
Aye.
Ms. Bender.
Aye.
Chair say aye. Thank you. Alrighty, next one, Ms. Dillard. It would be the professional service agreement for the new fire station. New fire station in Dahlgren.
Sorry. I apologize. I'll start over. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. At the June 4th, 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting, the board denied the revised cost proposal from offeror number 1, Mosley Architect and Design, for RFP 1109-2023-1400, and instructed the county administrator and procurement to start negotiations with offeror number 2, Mans Woodard Studios Incorporated. The selection committee, consisting of the county administrator, Mr. Smolnick, Board of Supervisors Chair, Mr. Collins, board member, Mr. Stroud, Chief Moody, and Mr. Young, met with Mans Woodard Studios on June 20th, 2024 to start negotiation processes. The selection committee reviewed and commented on 2 revised proposals by Mans Woodard Studios following the initial scoping meeting. The selection committee presents to the entire Board of Supervisors the revised proposal for architectural and engineering services dated October 1, 2024, to construct a new fire station on approximately 3.15 acres of county-owned land on Windsor Drive, adjacent to Oakland Baptist Church. I come before you tonight to ask you to authorize the county administrator to take the following actions. transfer $800,000 from the construction line of the Firehouse Preschool Bond, GL 4302094144-8212, to the engineering line for the firehouse, GL 4302-94145-3140, and execute a professional service agreement with Mans Woodard Studios, Inc. in the amount of $800,000 for professional architectural and engineering services associated with the new fire station, subject to approval as to form by the interim county attorney.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
By roll call, is there any discussion? Seeing none, by roll call, Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Ms. Bender?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. $11:05, Opticon System Change Order, Route 205301.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Come before you tonight to request use of transfer of project contingency funds to the project line for new conduit, underground conduit needed at that intersection. The contractor installing the Opticom traffic preemption equipment at the traffic signal located at James Madison Parkway and Ridge Road is unable to complete the install due to finding the existing underground conduit full. An additional underground conduit is needed to run the control wires and finish the installation. This is an unforeseen condition, and the county is responsible for the cost of the new conduit. The contractor is unable to install the Opticom system on this critical intersection without a new conduit. On February 7th, 2023, the King George Board of Supervisors approved the Opticom project and budget. Installation of Opticom system, $265,877.91, and a contingency of $26,587. We are requesting to use the approved contingency funds to pay for additional work. The quote came in at $8,840 from our contractor. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Sullins.
What is this supporting? What are we doing here?
This is for the traffic preemption system, the Opticom system, where we're able, fire and rescue and law enforcement vehicles will be able to control the intersection so they can proceed through the intersection with a green light to make it safe.
Awesome. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll bring it up. Mr. Smalley, can you put that on the next agenda for action, please?
Will do.
All righty. Mr. Smolnik.
Thank you. There's two items. The first one that I want to talk about is an initiating resolution. There's been a lot of discussion about the growth of the county and by right subdivisions, and I think we've had it was really brought to the forefront with the schools discussion in the $57 million referendum on the ballot. So looking at this, looking at the current zoning, there's three districts in the county. The A1 district has a minimum lot size of 10 acres. The A2 has a 2-acre minimum lot size. And the A3 district, which is mainly developed, this is a 1-acre lot size. So thinking about the cost of by right subdivisions on the citizens as a whole, all the citizens, these are impacting our schools, our fire, library, public services, public or first responders. So thinking about this, having some discussions with the board, there's a resolution before you tonight initiating a text amendment to Division 4 Agricultural District Dimensional Standards. The way this would work, the Board of Supervisors, if you would choose to approve the resolution as presented, and then that directs staff to look at the specific standards and make amendments for consideration by the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. Planning Commission shall hold at least one public hearing on the consideration of the amendment, and then it would come back to the Board of Supervisors, should you all want to schedule it for a public hearing. So there is a resolution in your packet tonight for the King George County Board of Supervisors initiating a text amendment to Division 4 Agricultural District Dimensional Standards.
All righty?
Quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I guess I don't, not be discussion though, because I want to point out this is important, why it's important.
Go ahead.
Why it's important to me, because I've been a big bear about making sure that we relook at the ordinances and the zoning all in one thing, all in one trunch, you know, and take it chapter by chapter. But we do have an issue with a lot of growth and the infrastructure not to support it. So by doing this, this would at least allow us to get a handle on it while we work on doing the overhaul, to relook at those ordinances and zoning so it doesn't overwhelm the system. And I've heard that from those high growth areas like Loudoun and Prince William. That was one of the cautionary tales they gave is, you know, the growth overtook them.
All righty. Is there any other comments?
Yes, sir. So
Go ahead.
this is just to allow them to come back with recommendations for us.
That is correct. We've had some initial discussions in community development. Like I said, the A1 district is 10 acres. Initial thought, you know, does this go to 25, 35, 50 acres? How large do we want to go? And the A2 district is currently 2 acres. Looking at this, is this a 10 to 15 or up to 20, 25? Maybe I want to get some initial guidance from the board. Maybe give staff some general direction. Or do you want us to just bring back a wide array? What kind of direction can the board give community development?
So I think that's, so with this, we need to include that some of the restrictions that are in place. So if you do a subdivision, a family subdivision right now in an A2, that you can do it. However, the family member has to retain that property for 15 years. Now, this is a change that happened our last, whenever we did the last changes, which was last year, adopted new changes. But now, so a family member has to keep that land for 15 years before they can sell it or do anything with it, which under most situations, that's fine and that's good. But it is a consideration. So.
And Mr. Stroud, you bring up a good point with family subdivisions. So the minimum lot size for family subdivisions, typically right now it corresponds to the underlying zoning district. Now, if you take A1 up to, I'm just saying hypothetically 50 acres, you may want to direct staff to have a provision to keep the family subdivision. We would have to call out that specific section with a lot size, so as not to require a husband and a wife to require 50 acres for a lot for their son or their daughter. So we can look at it that way.
That's right. So a family bought 50 acres, and then later on wanted to subdivide it for their son or daughter, that they still have the ability to do that.
Right, and then the family subdivisions, I guess, would be a little bit more lenient as far as acreages.
Right.
So, Mr. Davis?
I'll just say, thank you. This is something I've been bringing up since January. But, one of the things we have to do is just put our hand on the spigot. And, I think after it was a couple meetings ago when we talked about doing everything at once. And just whenever I talked to Mr. Stewart, so we can do everything. We can't wait for that on this. And I just appreciate you guys bringing it to the forefront and getting it done. I know Mr. Stewart has some good numbers on what he was looking at for the acreage. We discussed that a little bit. So somewhere in that ballpark would probably work.
What numbers are they? Anybody have any suggestions?
Mr. Chairman,
it was 50, 10, and
it's up to y'all. But if you want this to be sort of and I think this is just supposed to be a stopgap measure until you all can do the holistic overview of everything that was done in December. But you may want to look at 10 acres, 25 acres, and 50 acres. It's entirely up to you all. I do think it's important to give the Planning Commission some guidance for this reason. If they bring something back to you all I think the way the law reads, you can always probably suggest it go lower if you advertise it to the public, but I don't think you can take it higher if you've advertised a number to the public. So you may find yourself having to redo it multiple times. The other thing that Mr. Stroud mentions, you may just want to exclude family subdivisions from this at this point in time instead of trying to address that. So you could always just amend the resolution to say we'd like them to consider whatever your numbers are, 10, 25, and 50, and exclude family subdivisions from this resolution, and that's an easy amendment.
Another thing that you can shoot.
Go ahead, sir.
So right now, if you were to look at a map of where these areas are, there are some real limitations in the areas. Like if you look at A2, there's not a lot of property that is right now A2. We're going to go in and find a 50-acre parcel, or you're going to find a large parcel. Okay, most of those areas are already developed in King George. They're A2. There aren't that many of them. You know, probably 30 years ago, you could still get a couple 100-acre parcel. They don't exist anymore. The only ones are probably closer to the industrial area or on the south side of Route 3.
Would the consensus be to be 10, 20, and 50 with excluding the family subdivisions?
Mr. Chair, can I, on the family subdivision, my only concern is what if someone did that and then immediately sold off the property to make money? That was my one concern.
Ms. Bender, there's a 15-year holding period. So if I were to have acreage and I gave a lot to my son, he would have to hold it for 15 years before selling it off.
And that's in the current ordinance, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So is there a consensus to go that route?
So are we saying the A1 is the 50, 20, and 10? Or
no. A1 is 50, A2 is proposed 25, A3 is proposed 10 acres.
And then exclude the family subdivisions.
50, 25, 10? I think I would go more 50, 20, 10.
50, 20, 10. Going once? Going twice? 50, 20, 10. And so do we need to go ahead and do the resolution?
Motion to approve the resolution as stated, and maybe as amended.
Do we have to, it goes in front of the Plan Commission, there's a public hearing before the Planning Commission, or, I mean, after the Planning Commission, but before it comes to us, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So you do this initiating resolution. The Planning Commission will put it on their agenda. They will have a public hearing discussion about this, and then they'll make a recommendation to you all, and you have to act. And
Okay.
I think you would just make a motion to approve the resolution as amended, excluding family subdivisions and making those specific categories 50 acres, 20 acres, and 10 acres as suggested.
All right. Do we have a motion for the resolution?
Recommend a resolution as stated.
All righty. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All righty. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one additional item. I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Stewart regarding a lease agreement with a tower company.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smolnik, shortly after I became interim county attorney, there was a request for the tower behind the middle school, I think is correct. And it was Verizon, and now it's their successors in interest. They wanted some more terms. The rent was a little bit shaky, and they've been going around trying to decrease rent. Mr. Rasavi actually took this one on, and he has gotten them to agree in an increase in rent, and they want 4 or 5 additional terms of 5-year terms. And the starting point is $4,000 per month on the new term coming up, with a 3% escalator each year. which was a really good deal for King George County. Mr. Savi did a really good job. If you all are okay with that, and I think we've talked about this before, but it just took a while. The one thing they wanted in this was a right of first refusal if you ever sell it. So you have to consider that. But because this is an extension of a lease and you are obligating public lands, you have to have a public hearing. So what we really want tonight is your feedback on the number. And I know Mr. Chairman's going to want more, but Mr. Asavi beat him up pretty good, I will tell you. And it took a while to get him here. And then I'd like permission to work on this first refusal language some, because I don't like it. If you're okay with the first refusal, but the language concerns me a little bit because it's kind of cumbersome. And when you have those, sometimes people can tie you up and drag you out and you lose the other deal. So I think it needs to be a little more clear cut, a little more straightforward language.
Where's the location of that tower?
I think it's the old middle school is what I was told.
So will that location of that tower be problematic when it comes to the connector road and the other projects going on there?
Mr. Collins?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I could actually answer that. The connector road is not, the only place that connector road can go is not where the cell tower is. In cross-country terms, everybody ran cross-country at King George. It was called Freedom Road, and it's on Freedom Road, and it goes from, you can access it from the back of the middle school, and it goes all the way across the backside of the property. And the connector road is near, it's on the backside of the houses that front 206. So different locations of an L.
Right. So we will make sure that it doesn't cause us any problems for any projects. So,
well, this would be granting them a lease until 2062, but on very favorable terms to the county, in my opinion.
There's a 3% escalator.
A year.
A year.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted more than that.
Go back?
No. You know, 2062 is a long time at just 3% escalator.
That's a very long time. And we're starting at $4,000 a month, so do the math.
I really can't.
It's a lot of money.
Gotta look at the math majors here.
All righty, where we're at with that? What's the feel of the board? What's the consensus?
I've proceed forward, in my opinion.
That's 3. All right, sir.
We'll advertise for public hearing the next available meeting, and are you okay if I work with them a little bit on this language?
Yes, sir.
Where I'm comfortable with it. Thank you.
All righty. For the county administrator, is there any questions for the county administrator? I just have one, sir. So the to-do list, we had a consensus to do that, and so we would like to have a to-do list so we can, it's not just for us, but it's also for the public to see where everything's at, how everything is completed, so everybody can see it. It was very valuable.
Okay, good.
So if you could just either do that yourself or assign it to somebody, please.
So similar to, I know the to-do list, I took the direction from the board for all the ARPA funds, that similar fashion, but every project going on throughout the county.
Yeah, there's old to-do lists as you'll see on the agendas, and there's also one that the schools have. It's the same thing, and so you can just copy that, and then I would suggest myself. I would suggest you assign it to somebody, but that's not mine. Alrighty.
Yes, sir.
And so the secondary public comments. Comments be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity. Good. That's just informational. Comments were limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so that it can be properly included in the record. Is there anyone for public comment? Seeing none, is there any The board receive anything in the last
No.
couple hours? Nope. All right. I will close public comment. Any comments online? I will close public comment. All righty. And I think the next thing is the closed
Motion.
meeting.
Pursuant to State Code Section 2.23711A1, I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors convene to closed session for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body, and evaluation of performance of departments where such evaluation will necessarily involve discussion of the performance of specific individuals. I invite the county administrator, interim county attorney, and prospective candidates as needed because they are deemed necessary and/or their presence will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of the topics to be discussed pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23712F.
Is there a second? Is it properly second? We are now in closed meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now we're now in closed meeting. Thank you.
We ready, Jeff? I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors return to public meeting and certify by vote that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting, and no action was taken on matters discussed in closed session.
Second.
Second?
Second.
There's already a second. Certify?
So
Certify.
So certified.
Certified.
Certify. All righty. Is there a motion for,
Chairman?
For adjournment. I got it.
we are now in open session.
I'll adjourn to Tuesday, November 19th, 2024 at 5:30 PM in the boardroom of the Parks and Recreation Citizens Center at 8076 Kings Highway, King George, Virginia 22485.
Second.
Second. All righty. Is there any discussion on the matter? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are now complete. Thank you.